On this week's episode, I want to go over first focal plane versus second focal plane. I know it confuses the heck out of you. First focal plane, or front focal plane, is the front focal plane is between the turret and the objective of the rifle scope. Second focal plane, the focal plane is back here. So in first focal plane, the way it adjusts as you move your magnification in and out, it grows and it shrinks. Second focal plane, as you zoom in and you zoom out, your reticle stays exactly the same. So that's the difference between first focal plane and second focal plane. First thing I want to do is I want to break this down into different sections. So you can take my advice, look through it, and then go about purchasing your optic. First is price. What is your budget? I see people on forums and things all over the place that are like, hey, I want an optic. Okay, what's your price range? If your price range is low, you're probably going to want to look at a second focal plane optic. Second focal planes are inherently less expensive. They're just built differently. First focal planes are usually more expensive. They've got more options and they're built differently. So that's the first thing you need to look at is cost. What is your budget? What are you going to do? Now, there are new first focal plane, less expensive options. Do they track great? Do they work great? Maybe, maybe not. If I were going to do that, I'd probably want to go with a first focal plane, a more expensive first focal plane that I can trust. Second thing I want you to look at is use. Are you hunting with it? Are you competing with it? That's one of the big things that separate them. Now, with a second focal plane optic, the reticle doesn't change as you go through magnification. So if you're hunting, you've got an animal up close, your reticle's still big enough that you can put it on the animal and pull the trigger. With a first focal plane optic, you're zoomed all the way in. You can't see the reticle in a lot of cases. So it's not necessarily going to be the best bet for hunting. Now, if you're going to go out and compete, that changes it. You're going to want a reticle that zooms, that you can utilize to measure with, and that you can engage targets with and use the reticle to measure your misses or your hits. With a second focal plane, you can't do that. Depending on what magnification range you're in, changes the distance of the reticle. So if you're going to compete with it, you're going to want a first focal plane. If you're going to hunt, you can go either or. I use a first focal plane when I hunt just because I'm used to them now. But if you're going to go out there and you're going to buy one optic, make those decisions based on those factors. Okay, the third thing I want you to think about is reticle choices. Now, are you going to compete with it? If you're going to compete with it, there's a lot of great options in reticles out there. Our new Voodoo line comes with the H59 and some other factors. Go look at them on our website to see which one fits. But these allow you to measure and utilize your reticle in your scope to engage targets, to engage multiple targets, and to use windage to engage targets. Now, if you're just going to go out and hunt, you want to dial every time because dialing is more precise than holding in most cases. A second focal plane will be great for you. You're not necessarily utilizing the reticle to measure. Depending on what magnification you're at, you're just going to dial and you're going to make the shot. So think of it when you're doing that. What am I going to use the intended optic for? Another thing I hear a lot of times is I have to have a first focal plane because I'm going to measure everything with my reticle. Let's be honest, rangefinders and apps have come a long ways. Don't purchase an optic or reticle just solely on you're going to utilize it to measure ranges, because you're not usually going to. So when you're going to buy an optic, make sure the reticle you choose fits what you're doing, make sure it's within your price, and make sure that it fits all the check marks that you need in an optic. In closing, go through these factors. Use the checklist that I've given you to make sure that you're buying the optic for your use, whether it's first focal plane or second focal plane. They're simple. Just go through the checklist, make sure it's what you want. Thanks for watching, and if you've got questions on first focal plane versus second focal plane, put them below.